It's the Prestige Junkie Podcast. I'm Katie Rich. Today, I'm joined once again by my colleague, Chris Rosen. Chris, we spent an epic time live streaming the Oscars, but the Oscars are over. Actually, the Oscars are never over for us. Next week, we're going to be doing our year-ahead Oscar predictions, bringing back our friends Joe Reed and Chris File. It is truly a tradition unlike any other. We're very excited. But Chris, today, we want to talk about a new movie. We're going to talk about Project Hail Mary. Are you ready? You ready to talk about 2026 films?
I'm so psyched. And we haven't really talked about this together. We both saw it. And I was like, I can't wait to hear. I really enjoyed this movie. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Well, there's so much for us to talk about. And then after you and I talk, we will hear my conversation with Drew Goddard, who is the screenwriter of Project Hail Mary. You might also know he also adapted The Martian, also a book by Andy Weir to an Oscar nomination back in 2015. It is a great conversation, so you have that to look forward to. Welcome to the show. Okay, Chris, seriously, I have seen almost nothing in 2026. I'm so behind on all new movies. I keep saying I'm going to go see Send Help and then have never gotten around to it. So it is so exciting to have this movie, Project Hail Mary. It's, as everyone's listening to this, it's already out in theaters. We're recording this before its opening weekend, but it not only looks like it is good, which we both know, we've both seen it, but it's going to be a hit. Like, we're feeling optimistic that this original sci-fi movie is actually going to work.
I mean, we'll see what the future holds, but based on right now as we're recording this, yes. I mean, like, the expectations are like 50 million, 60 million opening weekend for an original sci-fi movie that's almost 3 hours long. That's pretty good, I would say.
So long. Absolutely. I mean, and it's got IP to it. Like, I do think The Martian kind of looms large over this. I mean, Andy Weir's books are huge in and of themselves, but it's been over a decade since The Martian came out. But I do think it looms large for us and a lot of other moviegoers as being like, hey, like, you know how you can have like a space movie that's fun, but also science-y? Like, it's a really interesting market that this guy has kind of cornered. And it feels like it's hitting the right people with, you know, how they're trying to get people to come see this.
It feels like a crowd pleaser and also like a crowd pleaser for everyone. Obviously, it probably wouldn't skew very young, but I could see there's nothing in here preventing like a 10-year-old from being excited to see this. You know what I mean? Or like that kind of thing.
I have a 9.5-year-old who we are tending to go see it. Hopefully by the time people hear this, we will have gone to see it. He's been reading the book, which is very fun because it is very science-y, as I was saying. I mean, Chris, we've both seen it. We'll both talk about the movie itself. We won't spoil it for people, although I think it's a little hard to spoil. We can talk about it. But I mean, as a March release, this does feel kind of interesting. You're kind of our box office guy by default, as you do the Monday Morning Quarterbacks with Sean McNulty. What do you think about this as a March movie?
I mean, I think it's interesting. It was one of those movies. I remember seeing the trailer, and they really launched it last year at CinemaCon, which happens in April. And it felt like, oh man, I can't wait to see that. And maybe it'll be a holiday release. But it's actually great timing because there's just nothing really out, right? Mm-hmm. Certainly, like we've seen the last few weeks, Hoppers has done well. Like we've saw The Bride flop and like kind of things like that. But like there's really nothing out like it. The next big movie is Super Mario Galaxy, which is, again, just probably more for kids. So I do think this has like a nice lane. It kind of reminds me, I guess, of like, I don't even know, you would say like Dune Part 2, I think, came out in this corridor, right? Like, wasn't that like the original?
Yeah.
So it's like
it was supposed to, and then the Dune movies, those movies all got messed up by COVID and the strikes.
So Dune Part 2 came out in March also. So it does have that kind of like, maybe this is like now the smart sci-fi corridor or spot where you could release this kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think it's smart. And then as we've seen, like, and we'll talk about probably more and more, but like, is every month an Oscar month now? You know what I mean? Like, it used to be like you wrote about this in the newsletter last week, but like when they come late, it's almost too late. So I think if we're talking about this for awards, it's like, like we saw Sinners last year came out in April, right? And so, I think this is fine. It's like a great time. It kind of has the conversation to itself. And I think that it'll do well and won't kind of get drowned out by like the big IP over the summer and also the noisy fall movie. So it feels like a perfect spot for this. And I think that will bear out in the box office and maybe in the awards at the end of the year.
Yeah, I guess this is kind of the slot that Mickey 17 had last year. And the further away I get from that movie, I haven't revisited it, but I've become such a Mickey 17 defender. I thought that movie was so fun. And it was fun and weird. And, you know, it came out and everyone was ready to be like, Warner Brothers, oh boy, falling apart. And then they go and just like wipe the floor with everybody. But looking at the April schedule, like there's not really a Sinners coming this month. I mean, there very rarely is a spring release quite like Sinners. So it does kind of seem like in terms of the prestige of the spring, Project Hail Mary really might have that space to itself.
For sure. And I think, and if it does build up like a nice little runway of box office too, then it can't even be dinged as like, oh, like Mickey 17 was not as big of a success, even though it opened up number one when it came out, but whatever. Yeah, so I think that's like,
God bless Robert Pattinson. He is capable of so much.
So yeah, I think this is all good for it. And I'm very excited to see how people respond to it. Everyone I know who's seen it, just plain likes it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's just a very likable movie, and I have quibbles here and there, but it's like overall, it's just like really good and so entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, I was also thinking about Ryan Gosling, and this is maybe a way to get into the movie itself. 2 years ago, he got the Oscar nomination for Barbie. He had an all-time great Oscar moment performing I'm Just Ken, and then The Fall Guy goes and opens. I guess it played South by like the week after the Oscars. Like truly, he and Emily Blunt did not rest that spring. And then The Fall Guy was kind of seen as a disappointment. It opened in, I guess, early May, so like a little bit longer after the Oscars. So how are we feeling about like Ryan Gosling blockbuster star round 2? Like, is this a better fit for him than The Fall Guy was?
I think yes, because I just think he's the whole, I mean, truly, like, it's the whole movie. Like, if he does, if the movie, it's 2.5 hours and it's him, which, as we'll talk about, probably like with an alien made out of rocks. And that's the whole movie. So, like, he's like, I think you need a star of just tremendous charisma to be able to pull it off. And Fall Guy, which I think is fun and did get dinged because it wasn't as big of a success as maybe you thought it could have been, or you, the royal you, or the general you, right? Like, not you personally, Katey. I think it's like a perfect, like, you need someone who's like a massive star, and like this is like definitely Ryan Gosling. And I'm also like, so you mentioned Barbie. I'm like, he's got a Star Wars movie next year,
right? I keep forgetting about that.
It's just kind of crazy. I think he's like, I almost feel like he's underrated as a movie star because he obviously is like I think this will do really well. Obviously a Star Wars movie, and Barbie is $1 billion movie. So it's like he's definitely one of like the most famous actors.
How much do we credit Ryan Gosling for Barbie opening so big? Like, I think he gets some of the credit.
I don't think I clearly wouldn't give him, like, obviously Barbie is Barbie, right? But I mean, like, the response to his character was so strong that he was able to like get an Oscar. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of crazy when you think back that Ken was such a lightning rod for fun that people loved so much. And I don't think lightning
rod for fun. What a great way to put it.
And I don't think I don't know of any other actors who could have done Ken and Project. I just think he's so unique and like as a star, like he has, because his charisma is so inviting. You know what I mean? Like he's not like sarcastic really. And if he is, it's kind of like, I don't know. I just think he's got like, the vibes are so good for Ryan Gosling.
It's so interesting how that vibe has shifted. Like you think about like the Blue Valentine era of Ryan Gosling, or even like in the 2000s when he was starting off, he was like tortured, artsy young man. Like even Lars and the Real Girl, I haven't seen that movie in forever, but like he was playing kind of like a nice guy, but it was so weird. And I don't know, The Nice Guys, I guess, is over a decade old at this point. So it's not like it's totally new, but I can't figure out when exactly Ryan Gosling kind of just like leaned in to being charming, which he seemed so resistant to for such a long time.
It's a great point because I do, and I think like not to bring up Timothée Chalamet soon after the Oscars.
Look, man, he is amazing. We're going to be talking about Timothée Chalamet forever. Don't worry about it.
But I don't think they're dissimilar in exactly what you're saying. Like those early Ryan Gosling movies, like Half Nelson, certainly, like all these are even The Notebook, like incredibly serious, and like he's like heavy drama and takes himself very seriously. That's what made like Crazy Stupid Love. That came out in 2011. That was so much fun because it was such like taking a piss out of his like persona. And even that year he did Drive and The Ides of March, which are also similarly like
so serious. Yeah.
Like, and then Place Beyond the Pines and all these movies. Like
Gangster
I think,
Squad? I'm on IMDb now. We're just going to throw out the hits.
But then like, yeah, you're right. Like 2015, he does The Big Short, which is very comedic, that performance.
Literally,
he is really funny in it. He plays one of like the like he's just like a slimy Wall Street guy who's very funny in the movie. And then he has Nice Guys in La La Land, which I think is a largely comedic performance. And then there are some serious stuff in there, like Blade Runner and First Man. But then after that, it's like mostly this kind of comic movie star stuff that he really kind of embraced.
I mean, Barbie just feels like it really unlocks something. Because like La La Land is a comedy in some ways, and obviously it's a musical and he's doing this dancing, but that character is kind of one of the least appealing things about the movie, like the white guy who's very serious about jazz. So it kind of felt like it was leaning into like how we thought of Ryan Gosling back then. And if you made La La Land now, like I wonder if he'd even be able to pull that off, or if he wouldn't be more likable in that character.
I think he probably would be. And so I wonder, like looking at Timothée Chalamet now, like is this the future? Is there like Timothée Chalamet I really loved in Wonka. I thought that was like a really great performance. He's so fun. It's a really funny movie. He's got great comic timing. And I'm like, well, will he shift event? Like, is that the shift for Timothée Chalamet kind of to follow this Gosling thing? Because I think he has the charisma to pull it off, not to make this about Timothée Chalamet, but I just think like Gosling is so unique.
Not to make it about Timothée Chalamet.
But I am going to make it about Timothée Chalamet. But I do think Gosling is like so unique in that. And like, I think he's great. He's like legitimately great in Project Hail Mary. I think he's so funny. And he also lands the emotional stuff, and there's a lot of that in the movie. And like, we're not going to spoil it, but like, it's kind of you're right. It is kind of spoiler proof because the narrative is all fractured and kind of jumping around. So, but yeah, he's just great in it. It is like really ideally suited for him to the point where I'm like, I don't actually know who else could have done this movie to make it work.
I have had that thought too. And they cast him in this, because I interviewed Drew Goddard, as you'll hear in a minute. And they put this together in 2020, kind of in the early days of the pandemic. So Barbie had not happened yet. Like this was kind of, in some ways, like kicking off this period of Gosling that we're in now, even though we didn't get to see the movie at first. And, people probably know the premise of the movie. I think it has been pretty well marketed, but he's basically this guy who wakes up on a spaceship several galaxies away and realizes he's been sent to save the world from the Earth dimming because of this bacteria, this alien bacteria that's making the Earth go out, basically. And he's trying to figure out why. And then he encounters an alien who is this rock crab kind of creature, who he names Rocky and has a voice, kind of through computer translation, which is very fun. But it is so much of a one-man show, way more than like First Man, another Ryan Gosling in space movie. I was also thinking about Ad Astra, which is a very serious version of this kind of space story. It's a movie I love, to be clear, but it's not really fun in any kind of way. And obviously, The Martian was kind of a one-man show in that way too for Matt Damon, but this just relies so much more on Gosling. And I read some of the book, and now my son's reading it, so I have to wait for him to finish before we can be done with it. And the book is very funny in the same way, but it's the tone of this movie is different to me. It's like a sharper comedy. It's like a little bit more relaxed. Like there's something about Gosling looking extremely good while also doing goofy things like floating around in a spaceship. Like he pulls that off in this interesting way. And I think that's credit to Drew Goddard, who I'll talk to in a minute, but it's not grating in a way that you think that it might be. And I don't really know. It's kind of like a magic trick that they pull off.
It truly because like it's the whole movie. It's 2.5 hours. Like if you're not in on the charisma of Ryan Gosling and the charm, like you're out on the movie. And I'm like, also like, I don't know who would be out on Ryan Gosling. I was like trying to think like, who is the hater who's going to be like, you know what? I don't like Ryan Gosling.
I mean,
I'm sure we'll find them as
that kind everywhere.
We'll wait another year.
One of my huge takeaways, I saw this at the IMAX office screening room in Los Angeles, and oh my God, it looks so good. Like I'm sure it's going to look good on every screen, but just perfect screening room. And as I was in the lobby, one of the first things I said was, I literally don't think Ryan Gosling has ever looked better. And I doubt that was your main takeaway, but I do think it's important. He looks incredible in this movie. Even wearing this like weird yellow raincoat in a lot of the flashback scenes on Earth. One of the surprising things for me too is how much fun it is to watch him and Sandra Hüller together. I think a lot of us looked at this as like Sandra Hüller's paycheck job after Anatomy of a Fall, which fine if that's, go build your house, whatever, Sandra Hüller. But I thought she was great in this. And the two of them together have this really unlikely dynamic where she's kind of like the no-nonsense German woman leading this project that's going to send him up into space. And these are all happening in flashbacks. And it's not really a romance at all, which is kind of what you would expect from something like this. But it's so interesting, despite the fact that there isn't that level of tension between them.
It is like, it felt like a romance of respect a little bit because she clearly like does respect him, even though and believes in him more than he believes in himself, as we find throughout the movie, right? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like she's very much like wants to bring him into this like world. It's some like you said, like there's a catastrophe facing the planet and like trying to bring in the brightest minds to solve this issue of why the sun is dying, basically, right? And she's just great. I thought she was so funny. And again, you're right. Like I thought the way they subverted that kind of typical character of what you're expecting was really fun. And she's really good in it. Like she's just great. This is going to be, again, as we'll talk about next week like this feels like a Sandra Hüller get ready to see her in like a bunch of things this year kind of year.
Yeah.
And like probably at the Oscars next year, maybe in some capacity.
Maybe not nominated for this, but
not for this, but like, like this kind of, when I was watching, I was like, this only is like an additive to whatever else she has coming this year. You know what I mean? Whether it's 1949 or Rose or whatever. It was just like, she's absolutely great in it. And then the other person who he has incredible chemistry with is the Rocky, the alien, Katey, who I just thought was so well rendered, visual effects wise, and then obviously it's voiced and puppeted by James Ortiz, who is like a famed like stage puppeteer. He's done like a lot of, other like Broadway shows, I think, right? Like, so.
Yeah, and I believe the idea was not for him to be the voice of Rocky, that they were going to replace it with, whoever else, and then they just kept him, which is so. I think I just heard that story, so tell me if I'm.
No, I think that's right also, and like he's just absolutely fantastic. Like it is so. I think you will like watching. I was like, wow, this is like just great visual effects, and that is a great performance from Gosling too, because like he's got to make you believe that this is he's like, it's a great interplay. They just have great, like he has great chemistry with a puppet.
Yeah. I mean, I assume there's a mix of puppetry and CGI happening with Rocky here,
certainly.
but I would never be able to tell you where the line is. Like, I think it's so, I mean, I like, honestly, like I was so into it, I didn't really think that much about it.
No, because, I just totally bought it.
Like he's got, Rocky comes from this spaceship that's kind of like made out of like spikes and glass. And then he has a bubble that he wanders around. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's such an immersive role. I mean, I want to talk about Phil Lord and Chris Miller too, because like they, I think, are such important directors to the style of comedy that exists anymore, to what people think you can do with animation. What starting with Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, honestly, Lego Movies, Spider-Verse, but their directing career has been really complicated. They made the 21 and 22 Jump Street movies, and then Solo was this horrible mess that I think everyone was glad to have escaped from. This is the first movie they've directed since 22 Jump Street. Right?
It's crazy.
It's
been
a decade.
It is. Yes. Like
they're so good at this, and I did not know they had a movie this gorgeous in them. It looks amazing.
I mean, it looks so good. The cinematographer is Greg Fraser, obviously, who won Oscar for Dune, right? And like, just like is an incredible cinematographer. It looks amazing. It looks like, I mean, and I say this like as a great compliment to them. It looks like a Christopher Nolan movie. You know what I mean? Like,
or it looks like 2001: A
does.
Space Odyssey.
Certainly,
sometimes.
It's absolutely gorgeous. Like all of the production design, everything at this movie is like top level to me, which is. I think
top
great.
Level shit. You sound like Timothy.
It's top level shit. No, it really is though, because I just think it's like everything, like the screenplay, like the production design, the visual effects, the sound design, the scores. Daniel Pemberton, who's great. Like they did a great job with this movie. I always loved them, and obviously they've produced like so many things, right? Like since Solo, including the Spider-Verse
they're
movies,
so insanely
right?
influential.
Right.
Yeah,
Mitchell's vs. the Machines, which I know you love, is a big fan of. Like. Even Cocaine Bear, I think they're an executive producer on, or
I
a
never
producer
saw
on.
Cocaine Bear, I gotta say.
So like they're obviously, like you said, like their fingers are in all kinds of pies and like a modern comedy, certainly in animation for sure. But yeah, this is like a real movie. It felt like to me, you know what I mean? Like it's Spielberg and Nolan kind of like level of crowd pleasing and visual effects and like kind of artistry that you would expect from like those bigger name directors.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Christopher Nolan, I do think is funnier than people give him credit for, but there's no way on this earth he can make a movie this funny. Like, not even a chance.
No, not at all. I guess it's Spielberg is like the better comp, maybe, because Spielberg obviously had such a sense of humor, and like you could see like the influences of him throughout on this. But yeah, it's great, and they're just great. And I'll be curious to see again how much credit they also get. I hope a lot. And obviously, Drew Goddard is an incredible writer, and like you said, wrote The Martian, and like. Has done so much great stuff, and it's just a great package of people behind the scenes bringing this forward.
Yeah, and you like people you've been rooting for a long time. Like even like Ryan Gosling to some extent, you see him make things that don't work as well. You're like, oh, you guys, you all figured it out. You all did it at the same time. So let's talk about the Oscars, Chris. And we don't want to get over our skis. And we, I think, correctly, waited and saw on Sinners and see how it held on through the whole year. But like, I don't think this movie is an accomplishment quite the same as Sinners, and I don't think it makes sense to like assign the same Oscar narrative to it, but I don't think there's any reason to keep it out of the conversation as we move forward through the year.
I mean, like, I'll tell you this, if there are 10 better movies than this at the end of the year, like, we had a great year. Like, that would be my thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's such a good movie that, like, even if it's not great, like, I think, like, I'm sure there'll be better movies, and I've seen better movies, and Sinners, I think, overall is a better movie, but I'm like, this is a really good movie, and I think, like, people remember enjoying it so much, and as long as it doesn't flop, and like who knows what the future holds, like in terms of like whatever narratives we have, it does feel like it would be in the conversation certainly for Best Picture. And even if it's not like as big of a juggernaut, like F1 got in, not to besmirch F1, but I'm like, this is like the same kind of, this would be like a better nomination. But
I think this is a much more interesting movie than F1.
And so I think like Picture is in there, like we'll do our early Oscar picks, but I have it like penciled in there for Picture. And I think a lot of the crafts categories, this is going to be which we'll talk about, not to step on that conversation, but it's a crazy year for the below the line categories because you'll have a Christopher Nolan movie and a Denis Villeneuve movie this movie.
And a Spielberg movie.
And a Spielberg movie. Yeah. It's just like, okay, that's crazy. So I think it'll be very competitive. So many of our blockbuster
guys are just coming home this year. It's great.
And then for like obviously the big one is like Ryan Gosling. And man, I don't know. I think he feel like if you go through like playing out, game theorying out like all the precursors and stuff, I'm like, he feels like an obvious SAG nominee or actor award nominee and a Golden Globe probably winner. Not that they matter as much,
in the comedy category.
The comedy.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see what other funny movies and like who knows where, whatever. But I'm like, man, like Ryan Gosling will definitely be at least in the conversation throughout the whole year. And I think that would be great because he's so good in it and people really like him. So I do think like it is going to be it's not Sinners, but I think it will be a player this year.
I think that it is like philosophically important that when we have our movie stars, that we at least get them Oscar nominations sometimes for like the performance in which they're just being a movie star, in which you can just kind of like lean back and like lean into the things that you were really good at. Like I think about Brad Pitt and Moneyball a lot and how great an Oscar win that would have been. But that doesn't happen that often. Like you're just so much more likely to get Oscar attention for, you know, something like Marty Supreme or even Sinners. Like those lean on their star power for them, but there's a lot of work and there's makeup and character and all this kind of stuff. And not that Ryan Gosling doing in Project Hail Mary isn't work, but it is leaning into what he is so good at in a way that I think really deserves recognition.
I 100% agree. I was trying to think like some of the, like obviously Matt Damon for The Martian, right? Getting in like stars who get in for just full, who get in for like full charisma. We don't really get that as much anymore. Like you're saying, like Brad Pitt obviously is another great one for Moneyball, but I do think... You just named two
performances that did not win Oscars.
No, I'm not saying like Ryan Gosling's going to win, but I do think like...
that they don't win very often, but even the nomination sometimes feels like the recognition.
It does, and like, so we'll see. I think it would be great to get him in. I guess the last time he was nominated for Barbie, and then I guess the last time before that was La La Land, I think that's right. So I'm like...
Yeah, he didn't make that many movies between La La Land and Barbie, honestly.
So, but his, the charisma's through the roof, so I think like let him in.
I'm like really scrolling through and trying to figure out the last time someone won a Best Actor Oscar that wasn't like doing a voice or having a thing or like it's just so like, Sinners playing twins. There's just always something going on with these big Best Actor winning performances.
There's definitely like a gimmick. I do think like in terms of like like people being movie stars, like Michael B. Jordan winning for Sinners is definitely in that because he's like a movie star. Like that is like a movie star performance. You could say the same thing for like Will Smith and King Richard. Like he's doing a character, but it's still mostly on the power of he's a guy you want to watch. Yeah.
Anthony Hopkins and the father to some extent. But yeah, it's Let's let a guy win an Oscar for going to space. Why not? It's make up for First Man. Obviously, I've been just clamoring for justice for that movie for years, and now finally everyone wants to see Ryan Gosling in space. Now,
future after party episodes or anything of us rewatching First Man pegged to Project Hail Mary.
Some of us have been here all this time. I'm so glad that you caught up with us. All right, Chris, thank you for talking Project Hail Mary with me, and for everyone else, hang on a minute, and I'll be back talking to the screenwriter of this movie, Drew Goddard. Now let's hear my conversation with Drew Goddard, the screenwriter of Project Hail Mary. As you just heard me and Chris discussing, Drew is also the screenwriter of The Martian. And I started my conversation just asking what his relationship has been like with author Andy Weir since that time. I think when you've been a writer in Hollywood as long as Drew has, he got his start back on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. You figure out how to build friendships with fellow writers, even if they're novelists and not actually working in the business. We also talked about how he's known directors Phil Lord and Chris Miller for quite a long time, how all of them really put their heads together to start crafting what Project Hail Mary would be back in those early days of the pandemic when it was really unclear if anyone would ever make movies again or step on a film set. But as he tells me, it was kind of meant to be that the movie would take as long to make as it did, not just because they managed to get Sandra Hüller to come in and play a great key role right after her Anatomy of a Fall breakthrough. Drew is a really great person to talk to about a lot of things. I've really learned a lot talking to him about the business over the years, and I think you will enjoy getting to listen in on it this time. So hear all of that and much more in my conversation with the screenwriter of Project Hail Mary, Drew Goddard. So, Drew, if you don't mind me just rewinding to start with, because as you well know, any movie getting made is kind of a miracle that it gets through the process at all. this movie, despite feeling like kind of a no-brainer now, like did just take time. Like the origins of it are really back in COVID era and even before that. But the way you've talked about it is that you and Andy Weir were just friends since the days of The Martian. Is that like you text each other what you're working on? You like have lunch together? Like what kind of friendship are we talking here that you guys sustained for 5 years between The Martian coming out and Project Hail Mary surfacing for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be it's like you described. We're texting each other, checking in. He lives in Chicago, and I live in Los Angeles. So it's not like we're having lunch regularly, but if he's in town, we try to hang out and big life events, kids and whatnot, we would check in with each other. And, kind of secretly, we're both always like, well, what are you working on? When should we get the band back together?
Yeah, I wondered, like, I don't think anything ever got reported about a Martian 2, and I think there's kind of some obvious limitations to that, but I do wonder if you guys were getting surrounded by people being like, hey, guys, have you thought about it? Like, was there any part of that kind of bonded you, even in just saying, absolutely not, let's do something else?
Yeah, I don't know that we ever had a strong opinion one way or another. It's usually like...
Really?
Well, if we loved the idea of doing something together again, and you've learned, don't force it, right? You don't want to just do a Martian 2 for the sake of doing a Martian 2. You want to do a Martian 2 because Andy has an idea that he can't stop thinking about. So it's more like, Andy, if you are excited about that, I'm in. But if you're not, I actually totally respect it.
So before he kind of comes to you and says, I have this book, Project Hail Mary, did you kind of know that was coming? That he was kind of thinking in a similar sphere, but often in a slightly different direction?
Yeah, I think unlike probably other people in his life, I bet, he was constantly asked, what are you working on? Tell me, what is it?
Yeah.
I don't do that because I know as a writer, the process of writing, you kind of need to tune out the world. And so I just let him know, if he ever wants to talk about anything, I'm here and happy to. But if he needs to just be in his, I call it the writing cave, writing away, go ahead. I will help protect your time and your space so that you can do your best work.
That is very respectful. I mean, the writing cave is interesting because for a novelist, you're sitting there, you're the one in charge. But when you write the way that you do in television so much, you can't really do that. Like that is, I mean, maybe it's a more similar process than I realize, but the idea of the collaborative writing that you've done versus what he's doing seems different to me.
It is for sure. But part of the difference is just the timeline. Like I do, even on a television show where you're trying to do 60 pages in 8 days, right? I still have to go in my cave at some point. It's just the cave, you're only in the cave for 2 days, right? You're only in the cave for 3 days, as opposed to however long you need for a novel. It's just about speed.
Does the cave time get shorter the longer that you do this? Or does it not work that way?
No, I found the opposite. Like I look at myself as a young man and Buffy, we would sort of, as a competition on that show, see who could do the script the fastest. And you'd be pulling all-nighters, all the things that you can do when you're young, which I can't do anymore. And I don't think it leads to better results. I've found it leads to better results if you can be, you don't want to have so long that you can second guess yourself to not writing anything. But you want a healthy, adult way to write.
Well, that's what the feature script versus TV script balance let you do, right? Like, I know that, so, back to 2020, this comes to you, and I think you said you had a bunch of other stuff in the works. I assume High Potential was in the mix, some there, probably other stuff. Was it about kind of balancing, like, all right, this TV show needs 10 pages by tomorrow versus I can take my time and sit and read this book? Have you figured that balance out for yourself?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Every project has its own calendar, right? And you kind of focus on what things need to shoot, right? I'm sort of looking at like, okay, this one's closer to the launch pad, so let's focus on this one right now, while the other one you can percolate on. That was the case here. I think I was writing High Potential and Project Hail Mary simultaneously. As crazy as that sounds, I think I was doing the pilot at the same time. So it was... You're just sort of the fire's burning hotter with High Potential in that case. And I could just sort of be leisurely with Hail Mary because I knew that one's going to take a while.
Yeah, but so you basically say, I'll write this, but there's a pandemic going. We're not going to shoot this for at least 2 years. Was that kind of like assumed from the very start?
I don't know that we knew because honestly, like he sent me the book 2 weeks into the pandemic, shutting everything down, right? So we were in that phase we all were in, which is we just didn't know.
Yeah,
But
when will we ever make movies again? Yeah.
Correct. That's right. Like, we were buying groceries, it was hard to buy meat at the grocery store. Like, that was the level we were at. So but you also know, just with features, it's going to take a while. Features, especially on features like this, where it's clearly an epic scope and scale. There's no fast way to do this movie. A fast way to do that. If you try to rush this movie, it's going to cost 2 times as much money. And so you realize you have to take your time and be methodical about it.
But it also, like, there was reporting that, like, Phil and Chris were involved and Ryan Gosling were involved. Like, that spring, like, it kind of went public quickly, as opposed to plenty of scripts you get to work on for years and no one ever realizes that they're happening. So does that put a little bit of a ticking clock on there? Is, like, people know about this and they're going to wonder where it is eventually?
It does, because certainly people get excited about it, but that falls under good problems to have. If people are excited about the project, like, I'll take that kind of pressure, right? And I also knew if I have to, I can write quickly. But part of this process was because Ryan was on and Chris and Phil were on when I came aboard, it was collaborative. Part of the time it's taking is us just sitting in a room talking about the best version of the movie and brainstorming and trying different things like that. That falls under writing to me. Yeah. But it's not like I'm actually putting pencil to page at that point. we're just talking through what the movie could be. And that takes a long time.
So, and now what you're describing is more what I think of TV writing, where you're sitting in a room, you're discussing things, and then you're going to go back with your script. And I assume The Martian didn't really work that way. I don't know how your other scripts have compared, but it does seem like a little unusual when it comes to feature scripts.
I think so, but I think it's the best way to work, and I think that's how, or at least it's a faster path to getting a movie greenlit. What I say to everyone when we set out is, the job of the draft one is to get the movie greenlit. That doesn't mean it's going to be what the movie is. But my job with the first draft is to just give the studio the information to decide, are they going to make this, right? Because I have found in my career, they kind of know after the first draft. They either it's either a fast yes or a slow no, if that makes sense. And so that's sort of the way we approach it. And so I find that in order to hold up my end of that bargain, I have to be really methodical about what the movie is. It cannot just be like, well, Drew's just trying his crazy draft and then we're going to keep revising. It's like, no, I need to put the best version that I know that will reflect something we can shoot, right?
Yeah.
In the first draft. And then once we greenlit it, then the second draft is about, okay, how are we actually going to make this movie? And then the third draft tends to be about what's the best version of this movie, right? And so it's worked pretty well for me, and we sort of held to that here.
Do you feel like does the first draft, does it make it look cheaper? Does it make it look faster to shoot? Like, what is that thing that makes them say, like, even if this doesn't actually come to pass, that they'll commit to it?
I think it's less, because I actually don't want it to seem cheaper. I want it to be a realistic imprint of what the movie is going to be, so that we're not making people enraged later when they realize how expensive it's going to be. You want to say, like, let's talk it through, and you want the soul of the movie to be on the page, right? Like, I want it doesn't mean we're not going to change scenes, we're not going to change plot points, but the goal is to capture the soul that I see and that we're all sort of rowing towards. If you can do that, then you can say to a studio, like, look, we're going to change some stuff, but it's not fundamentally going to change what this movie is, right? And if you're not on board, we should have that I'd rather have that conversation now than when we're halfway through the shooting process.
Shooting in London, yeah. So, assuming that the soul of this movie is this relationship between Grace and Rocky, Ryan Gosling and this alien creature, Rocky's described in the book, how do you get that on the script, knowing that there's going to be puppeteers and effects and all of these things? How do you write that down in a way that makes it clear what that is?
You're describing the biggest challenge of this. Let me honestly, when I read it, because whether I'm the director or not, anything I'm writing, I'm thinking through it as a director as well, because I want to look out for my directors. I actually love writing for other directors, but I also and I think the reason it goes well is because they know I've got their back. Like I'm not a person that's there to say it has to be done my way. I'm a person that says this is a collaboration and we want to find the best way through it. And so I read the book and loved it, but I also knew I don't know how we're going to do this alien. Like he is he's not like other aliens in movies where he can't exist in our atmosphere, right? He doesn't have a facial expressions to express emotion. He communicates through whale songs. Like he's not your typical. He would be the type of alien that would just be a killing machine in a movie. Like, he's not the kind of alien that you can have a deep-seated emotional storyline hinging on. Like he's not the type of alien that you can have, 70 pages of two-person scenes with. Like it's challenging. And I was really scared, but I just knew that Chris and Phil were the right people for this job. I think because they have an animation background, because they have this sort of fearlessness about, well, we'll just figure it out. Like it's going to take a ton of trial and error, and we're going to go down some wrong paths, but we will make it work. I knew they were right. Like, as I love their work so much, I knew they would find it, but I also knew it was not going to be easy. That's part of the 6 years of this, is like finding Rocky was a journey for sure.
Yeah. So you said you've been friends with Phil and Chris as well for a long time. What's the origin of that? I don't think you had worked together on something, unless I missed something way back there.
No, I think part of it, we're roughly the same age, and we came up our careers followed very similar paths. They sort of started on in TV on the comedy side, where I was more on the drama side, but we were working for shows that were hard to classify, right? The thing we had in common at every stage of our career is that we've had people asking us, what genre are you working in? And we don't have a great answer for it. Like, I think that's why we've liked each other so much, because I remember, coming into the Lego editing room, we knew each other then. We'd just show each other our stuff. It was fun. I think Jump Street was roughly around when Cabin in the Woods was.
I was just thinking that those two movies are real, like, what is this? And then it turns out well, and you're like, okay, see, trust me for once.
I think that's where we sort of found each other. And then when you when we connect like that, we just hang out. It's like Los Angeles is not that big of a town in that regard. Like people who like what you like, you find them and you sort of hold them close. And so I think we were always looking for something to do together.
Yeah. So you have that initial phase where you're kind of figuring it out. You get that first draft out there. You get the green light. Several years go by. The studio changes hands, which is a crazy thing to happen to anybody in the middle of development. And I mean, I feel like at this point, anyone who works in the business has gone through like 3 or 4 unprecedented things, because that's just how it works right now. But, you have Phil and Chris. Yeah. Like, how did that go for you guys?
I hate to point this out because it makes me start to feel like the problem is me, but Cabin in the Woods was bought, MGM goes under, Lionsgate comes in and buys it. Bad Times at the El Royale, Fox makes it, Disney buys it halfway through shooting. Like, I keep going through this. So
I think you're just living in interesting times, which is what we're all dealing with. I hope that's the answer, and it's not Drew's fault. But it does. It is. I mean, that is part of it. And you just sort of know, because of the interesting times factor, it's the price of doing business a little bit. And I wish it was that way. But going back to what I was talking about, that's why we worked so hard on the thing I have found that allows us to weather these storms is getting the early drafts of the scripts in such shape before we show it to anyone that we say, because Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdy were the ones that greenlit this. And then they go to Warner Brothers and we get new people come in. But Courtney Valenti comes in, it reads the same script and says, great, I love what you're doing. Like, we worked really hard to sort of make a script, and not just a script, but also the artwork and preparation that Chris and Phil did were a huge part of it. To sort of say, like, here's the vision. And show people, no matter who was in charge, show people what we were, at least the aspirations of the movie. And luckily Courtney Valenti got it and said, great, keep going. Did you have like the IMAX and kind of the big format ambitions back then at that point as well?
Yeah, I remember Chris and Phil saying from the very beginning, like, we need, this movie feels theatrical. We want to we want to swing for the fences with this movie. Like, let's do it. Let's not play it safe.
I mean, I think the way that we think about audiences in movie theaters has changed a lot since COVID in a way that, like, we haven't even wrapped our heads around. Like, you know, Phil and Chris made that video that I've seen in the theater being like, you have to see it on the big screen. Here's how it's going to sound. And I think about The Martian, which is another big screen spectacle. But I just wonder what you guys were faced in terms of like, here's how you have to convince people to go see this on a screen. Here's how you need to think about what this audience is expecting for the price of their ticket. Do you feel like that's shifted, you know, in the last 10 years and what you're asked to do?
I think so. I don't know if it's what we're asked to do, but it is what I feel, right?
Yeah.
I do feel anytime I hear somebody saying, please come see this movie because you have to save theaters, I'm like, oh, that's the kiss of death, right? It's like, we don't, I think the reverse is true, which is it's up to us to make people want to come to theaters. Like, it's up to us. Like, that's our job. And I take that job and that responsibility very seriously. So, and that's what I do think has changed. I do think you can feel that people don't just, like when I was like younger, that's what you did. Like, that's how we met people. Like, that's what we did.
You showed up at the mall and saw what was playing, whatever it was.
It's the best. I do miss it.
I mean, we saw some terrible movies by doing that.
Oh
but
my
still.
God. I saw literally everything. Like, I would see every movie that came out because in New Mexico in particular, there was nothing else to do.
Nothing else to do, yeah.
I miss that, but I also recognize we're not living in that world anymore. So now the question becomes, how do we give people something that is worth their time and money? And so it's not like we were pressured to do anything. We wanted to. Like, we love theaters. We love movie theaters. We want to show you, like, all right, this is going to be fun. Like, this is going to be a good time. And we take this seriously. So we went into it. No one was forcing us to do anything. We went into it saying, how do we make this as big as we possibly can?
Yeah. I mean, so, you know, they're doing that from the visuals and the IMAX and everything. But like, as a writer, how do you take that part of it? Is it about just having what you said earlier, like the soul of the movie? Is it just being like super abundantly clear at every turn, like that this is going to have a, you know, fun, but an emotional impact? Like, how do you make it seem big?
Well, that's a good question, because I don't know that I did. I think that the trick there, because the same approach, I don't know that I change anything depending on, it's just each movie has its own language, right? Each movie, and you know, if you're doing a complicated drama, all right, our audience it's going to be smaller, so just keep the budget in accordance with that and you'll do well. Like, it will be fine. I think it's so much of what you're describing just goes into the choice of making something. Like,
like once you're down that road, you're like, okay, let's make this the best version of itself.
Well, also, there's no cheap version of Project Hail Mary. Like, there's no version of this movie that is cheap. So that comes with, you do feel the responsibility of, okay, how do we, from just a good business point of view. But then once we agree to that, I don't really worry about it. Honestly, I don't change the story. I just try to write the best story I can. And all the things you're describing, sort of the spectacle and the emotions, those are all inherent to the tale. And I think that what's been nice, though, is knowing that no matter what I could come up with, Chris and Phil know how to shoot it. They'll come up with a way to do it, and we have the resources to do it. That is nice.
And I mean, you've got you were talking about their concept art. You kind of knew how they were going to handle it. How do you kind of write toward so much of the beauty of this movie? Like, I just was so, I have loved Phil and Chris's movies. I don't think they've ever made anything that looks like this. It's so gorgeous. And some of that is just going to happen, but how do you write toward that, knowing the kind of the grandeur that's going to come out of this? I think it's different from what The Martian had. Like, there's something kind of cosmic to it.
Yes, for sure. Cosmic is a good way to describe it. Look, I wish I could claim credit that I wrote it, but every day I would see dailies come in and go, oh my God, that's so much more beautiful than I ever could have imagined. That is a credit to them, where I just, I would just try to give the opportunity, right? It's more about creating a structure and a soul of a movie that allows them to be playful and to say, and to be very clear about the things I think are important at every stage. And sometimes those things are emotional. Sometimes those things are plot-based. Sometimes those things are technical, right? This is a very technical movie. I try to be clear about the things that I know are important to the movie. And then I'm also clear about, like, here's an area, have fun. Like, go play. Go try to find it. And that's also, the reverse was true with them. They would also do that for me, right? They would also say, this is where you should have fun. Here's what's important to us. And then that slowly, it starts with just the three of us. Then it gets a little bigger. And then slowly but surely, it's 300 people in a crew doing that. Yeah. And so you can feel it. I mean, these visuals, as much as I'm sure any of us would love to claim credit, it's Greg Fraser. I mean, Greg Fraser is doing just extraordinary work. His whole team. Like, you can just feel the artists in this movie on the screen. That's what's so fun about the environment Chris and filmmaking. It's not accidental that the end of the movie says a film by Phil Lord and Chris Miller, and then they list the entire crew, cast and crew. Like, that's not accidental. That is the mission statement of how they approach the job. And you can feel it on screen. You can absolutely feel it on screen.
I think I remember on Cloudy with the Chance Meatballs, it starts with the credit, I filmed by a lot of people. Like, I remember that so vividly, which is entirely true.
Yes.
And not very many people frame their movies that way, with good reason. I think it's fair.
I'm not going to criticize anyone, but I do.
Pressure's on you. Now you have to do it on the next movie you direct, unfortunately.
I think I will. I hope to be honest, because I think it's a wonderful way to both credit the work, but also to set a tone, a tone, a collaborative, because it is a collaborative art, and it makes it way more fun. It just makes it way more fun to come to work when people feel that way.
So you're on set for the whole time, part of the time, coming in and out. Like, how did that work?
No, they shot in London, and I was. Yeah. We were doing High Potential. I think we were in the thick of it on that and a couple other projects. So I would go back and forth. They would just call me when they needed to be there. And the truth is, because it's writing, like I could do a lot of it in Los Angeles. Like they would say, oh, we're doing this scene. Here's our concerns. Can you take a swing at this part? And I'd do that. So it was, but I would go over as needed.
How did that work compared to like the way it would work on anything else? It's like you're coming in to do punch-ups the way it would be anything else. I mean, the way you're talking about this collaboration, it's like, what did they need you for?
I mean, honestly, every day is different. If you look at the movie's hilariously complicated, right?
It is.
So some days it's as complicated as, oh my God, we can't afford all of Act One. How do we figure that out? Like, can we restructure? Or it's like, we got a whole lot of people saying science talk in the background of this scene. Can you come up with stuff like that for the background? Or Ryan's bumping on something about this emotionally. Can you take a look at it? It was constant throughout the shooting.
Yeah. I've been crediting Sandra Hüller as being kind of the best possible female lead of a big space movie, and that she's wearing like sensible sweaters the entire time and never has to do anything ridiculous. It seems like the most like chill, scary, powerful female lead in a sci-fi movie that I can think of, and that is true to the book as far as I can tell. But like, how did you guys work with that character specifically? Because it's not a one-man show. It is Ryan Gosling. There's all these other smaller characters who really have to make this impact, and that character is not who you expect to be the female lead in a sci-fi movie. How'd you guys stick to your guns on her? I'm
so happy to hear you say that, because it was her character, Stratt. Stratt was one of the reasons I wanted to do this, because I really connected with Stratt. I think, and it's not like I'm conscious of this when it's happening. Like whenever I'm working, I tend to go on emotion and instinct. It's only later that I start to intellectualize why, right? But I look at the Stratt, because I really cared about the Stratt-Grace relationship. And then when I look back, I'm like, oh, it's because I am a product of powerful women believing in me, and I did not believe in myself and say, you can be better than you think you can. And it starts with my mom. My mom was a school teacher she's been teaching for 50 years. So that's in this. But Lucia Berlin, who's a wonderful writer, she was my mentor in college, who said to me, you can be better. You can do this. And I didn't believe in myself. I got out to Hollywood. It's Emma Watts believing in me. It's Amy Pascal. It's Mary Parent. Like it is they're powerful women in studio heads who really, all of those women I just described are in Stratt. In my experience within Stratt, I would say, because Amy Pascal ended up being the producer on this movie, and I would joke with her. She's like, I would say, like, I'm just writing you yelling at me. That's all I'm doing. Like, there is part of that is the dynamic. And to be fair, all of what I'm describing is also in the pages of Andy's work.
Sure.
I knew how important that was to this movie. I knew needed that, and that we needed somebody that also, you understood why she was doing that and could make really difficult decisions and still have compassion in her heart while doing that, which is it's just a hard balance to find. And your point, thank God we found Sandra. I mean, thank God. Like, I don't, look, there's extraordinary actresses that I'm sure would have brought wonderful things to this role, but I now cannot see this movie without Sandra. To me, Sandra is carrying she is leading this movie the way her character leads the world in that regard, and carrying it through from beginning to end.
That's why it had to take so long. You had to see Anatomy of a Fall before you could have this movie exist.
Without question. I mean,
Tony Erdmann's there, but so maybe it would have happened anyway. But
Tony Erdmann, I was such a crazy fan of. But yes, if you look at Anatomy of a Fall, like you're like, okay, like just by the way, that entire cast. Side note, it's my dream to work with all of those actors.
Do you speak French? Do you have? Are you working on?
But let's get him in. We'll make it work. We'll make it work.
We can figure it out. It's all about being bilingual. Another kind of big picture industry question for you, because I always like asking you these, and this is sort of related to the Oscars, in that I think the stat this year is that the last 15 original screenplay winners were also directors of their movies. Like, it is so rare to even be nominated for an Oscar, much less win as just a screenwriter, which is not a role you've always played. You've also directed your own scripts, but it does feel like an endangered species in some ways, and I don't know if that's about. You have to be a writer-director to get like something original on screen because it's so hard to get a script made. Like, I wonder if that's anything that you've noticed in terms of just like people who want to build a career as a screenwriter, that it's a harder way out there unless you are directing your own work or kind of doing some other part of it. Like, is that something you've noticed at all?
It might be true. I don't know, actually. Like, with regard to it might be more helpful to original films. Like, that might be true. Like, I could see that logic that in order to get anything made that's original right now, you need resolve. There's a level of resolve, and a strong resolve comes through being a writer director for sure. They can sort of get sort of battering ram these things through the system. So I can see that. But it might just be the movies. Honestly, at the last, it might be that as well. I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Yeah. So battering ram thing through the system. What is that meant for you? How have you battering rammed through there? Because I don't think of you as a bully. Like, I don't think that's what you mean.
No, if anything, it's just more clarity. Like, the harder ones, again, these things all seem to make sense in hindsight, but like Cabin in the Woods, that's a crazy movie. Like, when you picture trying to convince someone to make that, I don't know that we could have pitched that. I don't know that I could have said, here's the elevator pitch for the Cabin in the Woods. I've made the movie. I still don't know quite how to describe it. So the battering ram version of that was, we wrote it as a spec. We did the budget. We put together the whole production package, and then we went to everyone and said, it's happening. Like we think we're being sensible. We can do it at a cost that no one's going to lose their shirt on this movie, and there's real upside here. And so that's part of the battering ram of just saying, like, we don't want to be in development for 5 years. I think if a lot of the movies we're describing, again, I don't know, you probably have better information than I do, but that's my understanding of how Sinners happens, right? It doesn't happen. It's not something that's developed. It's something that is, you show what the movie is going to be. What's that? I think that approach really works, particularly when you're doing something that's bold.
Yeah. I mean, Project Hail Mary was in some level, it was a long development process, but it sounds like you did a lot of the things. Like, we're going to put all the pieces in place that we possibly can. So, people are less freaked out when they say yes. Is that, you hold people's hand through it a little bit more?
I think so. I think that's, especially as the budgets go up, that's part of our responsibility. Just because you just realize you need everyone. To do movies of this size, you need everyone's resolve. It's not just our resolve as filmmakers. You need the marketing department's resolve. You need the studio's production side. You need resolve. Otherwise, you're spending your entire time battling when it's hard enough to make the movie. Like, you need to be spending all that effort just making the best movie you can. So I do feel like it's important, if you can, to sort of have good partners and find that. Again, not always easy. to do that.
Yeah,
but
you make it sound very straightforward.
No, it's not easy.
Do you feel the high stakes of a bigger budget like that when you're working on it? Do you find a way to tune it out so you're not thinking like, oh, if I write this sentence, that's $2 million that we're going to have to justify somehow?
I really feel it before saying yes to a project. That's when I feel it. Like I would say the most sort of torture I have is before I sign on. Like that's where I remember, the Martian, when they were trying to get me to do that, I went into Emma Watts' office and I said, I'm going to give you all of the reasons that you're not going to make this movie. Because I don't want to hear them 2 years from now when I write. I'm going to spend 2 years, working on the script. I don't want you to then come back to me and go, Mars doesn't test well. Science, women don't like science fiction with a male lead. I don't want you to hear. I don't want to hear these things because some of these things are inherent to what this is, and if you don't have a vision for how to get this through the system, I'm not going to be able to convince you. I'm not going to be able to convince you that you shouldn't use Mars in your title, right? Or that you should use Mars if you don't believe that already. And to Emma's credit, she was like, I hear all of these things. I think we can do this better. And if they come back later, I'm not going to blame you for this, Drew. And I think that's really colored how I do it. I say, let's have it's so easy. I don't really get upset and stressed when people tell me no. I get super stressed when people tell me yes. Because it's after they say yes, the next question I always ask is, okay, tell me what you think you've bought. Because
exactly. What do you think you've said yes to?
What do you think this movie is? Because I want to make sure we're on the same page. And if we do that, I have found, if we're really clear and you're working with good people, it makes for a much better experience.
Yeah. Last question for you. You're going to the premiere tomorrow. Opening weekend is coming up as we're talking. How do you handle opening weekend? What's your anxiety level? Are you checking box office? What do you do to get through it?
I don't. I feel like this is not a fashionable thing to say, but it's always gone to. I remember when my very first episode of Buffy aired, right, which should be a big time. I spent that evening writing the next episode in the office. I think there's part of me that it's very easy to get caught up in the sort of results of art, if that makes sense. And certainly in our town, I think part of the benefit, of doing this for a long time is I've had movies do really well. I've had movies do less well. I've had television shows do well. I've had television shows do less well. I've had good reviews. I've had bad reviews. What I've noticed is all of it really matters for 3 weeks. For 3 weeks when the movie comes out, it really matters and it's all, you absorb. And then after 3 weeks, the only thing that matters is, do I like the movie, right? Or the show. After 3 weeks, it all goes away and I can't remember what did well and what didn't. I just know that what I remember is, that was a wonderful experience with wonderful artists. And that is the case here. And so I have a feeling, we'll see. Most likely I will be hanging out with my family doing fun stuff. And people will call me and say, things are looking really good in theaters in the South. It's raining somewhere else, and that may have depressed these numbers. And I'll go, okay. I don't want to dismiss it because I'm really grateful when the film connects, and I'm really grateful for everyone involved. But I also know, I love the movie. And that's been the case of everything I've worked on. I have nothing that I would disown. And so I try, which I guess is kind of as I'm saying these things out loud, I kind of sound like a bummer because you want to be having the party, but
no, but you want to touch grass, you got to go live your life.
Well, I just think it's important. Part of it speaks to, look, everyone's different. Everyone does these things for different reasons, and there's no right or wrong answer. I have found that the joy I get is from the making of the thing. The true joy I get is from the act of making it. And so now it's sort of like I was describing it to somebody else. It's sort of like I'm looking at old high school yearbook photos. I was working on this 6 years ago. So I'm looking at a movie that is myself from the past, if that makes sense. Which is hard for people to describe because people just watched it and they really want to engage in the present. Or for me, it's like I'm looking at an old yearbook photo and going, oh, look at what I was wearing. You know, like it's
yeah. But you got something to show for all that time, which, as we well know, a lot of times in business you get nothing. So having a movie at the end of all that, what a relief.
Really have to find the joy. You really have to find the joy and gratitude for that. Because this, look, I've been on, not my own movies, but there's been movies where I was on, they have like buses where they go around for theaters, and I'm not going to name the movies, but I remember they do their own internal projections, and they had done projections that they thought the movie was going to make 170 million, and the movie only made 160 million, and you would have thought someone died. You would have thought and I was like, wait a minute, guys, you're missing the point. Like you're missing the point here. So I try really hard not to get too caught up in it one way or another.
Yeah. Well, I'm rooting for you to have a good weekend of being chill, whatever happens, and say close this 6 years yearbook. Like it's going to be over. You get to move on no matter what happens. There's something nice about that.
Well, and what is fun is that the movie really lives on. Like it's more people come up to me today to talk about Cabin than at the time it came out. That's
amazing.
It's just weird. It's just that, and that's the other part where you just realize that like, oh, these movies take on a life of their own, and it's almost like old friends come back to hang out with you. You know?
I'm kind of obsessed with that. Like, I think with having kids, you've probably seen this too, is your kids will pick up a movie from like 2005 that no one's ever talked about, and it becomes their movie. And you're like, the people who made this have no idea that right now there's someone discovering it for the first time. And movies live forever. And it's beautiful. There's something beautiful about that.
I mean, that you're describing why I got in this business. Like when I was a kid in the middle of New Mexico, like I would just discover movies over and over that I had no idea when they came out. You know, I had no idea, and yet I didn't care. I just they felt like they were just happening in that moment to me. And that's something that I always try to be grateful for, because I can feel that when it happens to other people, you know, with my work. And so that means a lot to me. That really does.
Yeah. That does it for today's show. As always, a reminder that over on Prestige Junkie After Party, you get a bonus episode every week with me and Chris, our colleagues, our friends, talking about lots of award season nerdy things. Yes, even though now that the Oscar race is over, there is still a lot of fun stuff to talk about. Join us there. In the meantime, this podcast is edited by Brett Fox and produced by Brett Fox and me. Our theme music is by Dave Gonzalez. Thanks, as always, to my colleague, Chris Rosen. Subscribe to the Prestige Junkie newsletter at theankler.com, and subscribe to this podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere else you get your podcasts. We will see you next week.